Hey, Armand here with your forecast for the week of May 2nd, 2021, and we'll also look at the month of May. Actually, we'll look at the month of May first, because the month of May is kind of an interesting one. Here's the whole story summed up really quickly. Get it done early. That's kind of the idea for May. Get it done early. The thing is that we have some good productive period between now and the last week of the month. And then when you actually get to the last week of the month, it really becomes a little bit nuts. So this week, we're waning into next week's new moon. Great time in general to just finish things up, wrap up projects, cement your plans, get things in place, do whatever cleanup kind of work has to be done and whatever kind of prep work has to be done. Great strategies for this week. Good energy for it too. I mean, this is not a quiet kind of week. And then going forward, we'll have a very productive time in mid-May. And then eventually we get down to that last week in May, starting on May 22nd, we have Mercury square Neptune, Mercury stationing retrograde, we have Saturn stationing retrograde, and we have a full moon eclipse all happening in the last week of May. It's not a bad time. It's a very active time, but it might be like, driving on a winding road with a cup of hot coffee in your hand and it's raining and your windshield wipers are stuck, something like that. Not necessarily the easiest thing to sort out what's going on or what you should do about it, and not necessarily the easiest thing to act, although I'm sure there'll be plenty of action. So this month we want to get stuff done early, and this week we want to do things that are a little bit more wrap up, bring things into a conclusion. That's kind of the energy of this week. Generally speaking, it's a pretty active week, especially considering that it's a waning moon. So on Monday, we have Mercury square to Jupiter, and this is an aspect that could get us to just say a little too much. This could be the aspect that gets you to open up or just ramble on, in fact. And it comes closely on the heels of last Friday's Sun-Uranus conjunction. And then over the weekend, Mercury was trine to Pluto. So we're in this kind of like active, edgy sort of phase. Hey, last week, really, that was something, huh? I don't know how you felt about it, but last week was challenging, I think, from the Pluto station, Scorpio full moon at the beginning of the week, and then that Uranus Sun aspect on Friday. It was really building up. I mean, as soon as Pluto got out of the way, in stepped the Sun Uranus aspect, and it was just this edgy kind of well, I didn't have a great time with it. I don't want to project onto you. I didn't have a great time with it. I thought it was pretty tough. This week ought to be a little bit better. There's not that much going on that is got that level of challenge to it. And so, I mean, each of us, we have to deal with what we have to deal with in our own lives, but the stars are not necessarily pushing in on us at this point in time, creating circumstances that are going to get us to be a little bit more reactive and so on. Anyways, so Mercury square Jupiter, it has that kind of expressive energy, perhaps a little explosive energy. You just want to say it. The thing is, on the same day, the Sun is square to Saturn, and this has a much more damping down kind of effect. In fact, if you flew off the handle any point in time last week, if things got crazy, if you were, over the top or a little extra about stuff last week, the Sun Saturn aspect could be something that sort of like pulls you back into the box type of thing. So that's an aspect that I think, will have a dampening down effect. If you say too much because of Mercury Jupiter, and then Sun Saturn comes around and says, well, was that a good idea? It wasn't a good idea. Now, as we get to midweek, again, we have the moon going through the end of the zodiac, right? We have the moon going through from Capricorn into Aquarius, into Pisces, and then coming around to Aries on the weekend. So as we get to midweek, we have an aspect between Venus and Pluto. It's a nice harmonious aspect. Venus is moving away from Pluto. This is the goddess out of the underworld. This is the moving away from moving away from things that need to be moved away from. And it would be particularly in terms of relationship, but I think also too, it could be a sort of decision point for any kind of business deals. Is we're going to do this or are we not going to do this? Venus pulling away from Pluto gives the sense that if you wanted to make it not happen, then perhaps, but also too, I mean, if there's something that you do want to happen, it's a pretty good time. So right around midweek, Wednesday, Thursday, even from Tuesday, the vibe is one of, if you want to get something done, if there's some sort of connection that you're making either on a personal or business level, this is a pretty good time to do it. Interestingly enough, Venus, when she is trying to Pluto, will be at what the star Caput Algol, right? Which means the head of the ghoul, and it is Medusa's head, right? So think about this like weird sort of juxtaposition of feminine energies with Pluto, right? We have on the one hand, Venus, the goddess of love, beauty, values, in her own home sign where she's so happy. And yet she's, at the Medusa. She's at the Gorgon's head. This is not a necessarily easy kind of placement. So although it's a good time for personal business and all of these types of things, be aware that there could be a lot of intensity associated with it. Also be aware that what goes on in the collective could be much less harmonious than as the energy works through our personal lives. All right, that's it. And we continue on in the week, the same plan goes for the week. And then we get to the weekend and Venus is going to square Jupiter. Now, Venus and Jupiter are best friends. And even when they're in a tense relationship in the sky, things are okay. Especially, again, Venus, being in our home sign. What we're likely to have there is a little bit of a how can we make this better kind of thing. Venus in Taurus would be pretty happy to, stay home and sit on the couch and maybe have some nice dinner type of thing. Jupiter in Aquarius, much more like, let's get out if things are opening up and, we can go outside in most places and so on, let's get out. So it could be a little bit of a tension between those two options. How are we gonna spend our fun weekend type of thing. Perhaps, it could be the difference between buying a luxury item, Venus and Taurus would like that, or maybe donating to charity. Jupiter and Aquarius would like it, that kind of thing. It's a sort of personal satisfaction versus collective stuff. So that's kind of a little bit of a guidance for the week, a couple little ideas about how things are sort of playing out and what you should do. I should have said this at the beginning, but I should say at the beginning all the time. What you should do is look at your own week. Think about it, on a Sunday, or if you can do it on Sunday, it's good. Look at the week ahead. Think about what's happening that you know about. Think of some areas that might have extra challenges and opportunities and so on, and then kind of match it into the astrology so that you're sort of catching the wind if things if you can match things up. If you have like some sort of business deal type of thing, all right, midweek, so if you could shift it to the end or you could shift it to the beginning, not the beginning, shift it to midweek. If you have to do it at the beginning of the week, well then go in knowing that there's going to be perhaps a lot of talk, but it's a no nonsense kind of situation. Speaking of a lot of talk, this has been going on for a while, so I will see you next week.